1 a.m. on Wednesday, April 23rd, and I will call to order this meeting of the Financial Planning and Supervision Commission for the City of Norwood. I will go ahead and take the roll. Mayor Schneider?
Present.
Council President Geers?
Present.
Mr. Schwartz?
Here.
Mr. Shepard?
Here.
Mr. Gomez?
Here.
Ms. Garvey?
Here.
And I am here as well. All right, moving on to our agenda. First up on the agenda is approval and acceptance of the minutes from the March 31st meeting. I have passed around a copy for everyone. And if I could have a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Can we check it for typos?
Yes.
My name's misspelled at the bottom of page one.
Okay.
I didn't see anything else that matters.
Yes, it is. All right, well, I will amend that there. Thank you. Any other amendments to the meeting minutes? All right, I have a motion from Council President Geers to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. I will go ahead and take the roll. Mayor Schneider?
Yes.
Council President Geers?
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Shepard?
Yep.
Mr. Gomez?
Yes.
Ms. Garvey?
I was not.
Ms. Garvey is not present, thank you. And I am a yes as well. All right, moving on. Next up is discussion and approval of debt incurred for the Rolston Avenue and Montgomery Road lead service line replacement projects. I've passed around ordinances approved by council for both of those projects. And I will go ahead and turn it over to Mayor Schneider or anyone else from the city who would like to speak to the projects.
Not getting too deep into the numbers, but let's see if do we have our first one? First one being the $400,000. Well, they're both 400. Both of these for approximately $400,000. This is the lead line replacement that is going to take place on Montgomery Road, and the second one is on Ralston Avenue. This is the service lines from the water main going into the buildings, and it removes lead pipes, which are of course considered bad, from the water system. So I would recommend that both be approved without haste. All right.
Anna Mary, if you would like to speak to anything, I know that the information was shared with you prior to this.
Yeah, so on top of that, this is really, they got a loan, there's forgiveness pieces to that, but also there's agreements with the homeowners, property owners, whatever you want to call them, that it'll actually be on their backs to pay for this. So that'll come in, and this is for the water fund as well, so it's not in the FRP, but it is one of the funds on the city's books. So that's the other pieces that you should know, that yes, it is the debt of the cities, but it will be backed by property owners.
Thank you. Anyone else for discussion?
Yeah, where are the terms to this? Am I missing that?
Second page on the bottom says special notes and instructions.
This
Talk about
summarizes here.
Sorry, which one is which? Is there any, I see different dates, request dates.
at the top
This is
of
the
one, it says
Ralston.
Montgomery Road in the caption, and then on the top of the other, it says Ralston Avenue in the caption.
So ordinance 14 is Montgomery Road and ordinance
Oh, okay.
15 is
Okay.
Ralston.
And which one are we talking about?
So
Both as a package.
They're the same
Okay,
thing.
we're not doing them separately? Okay.
I'll also say the debt is for 20 years, the repayment by the owners is 10 in the agreements.
So you're saying that this 188,000, that if everybody participated in the total repayment, but that's still paid by the homeowners, that 188,000?
Yeah, it's revenue backed by them.
Okay.
And if they choose not to participate, or how does that work?
They do not participate.
Which means what?
their lead service line stays in place and is connected back up.
Is, pardon my ignorance, is one of these related to the flooding that occurs all the time?
No, this is water distribution system.
Okay. Is there an amount per household that,
Varies, each one's different.
but I mean, did we figure out like the average amount per household is X, or this is the 188 divided up amongst these houses is X?
I'm sure there's some calculations, engineering calculations on how much it would be to do this many for this project, but it's not really, that I know of. It's
I mean,
not-
if I was a homeowner, how would I know what I have to pay?
As we move forward with this project, those calculations will be put in place and presented to the homeowner, and then they can approve or
Okay, so those are to be done still?
Yeah.
Okay. And who does this benefit?
the city of Norwood and the homeowner, ultimately the homeowner.
How does it benefit Norwood?
For the city of Norwood, it removes a lead line from our water distribution system, which decreases the potential for any type of lead into our system, into our general distribution system. For the homeowner, it removes the potential for lead to get it into their distribution system within their own personal property.
Why this area and not every house or every other lead pipe, or why this specific area?
We are replacing the water mains in these areas. They need to be replaced, and we're working to replace those water mains. So this will be in conjunction with the water main replacement project.
Which other areas don't deem to need?
Well, yeah, we've got a lot of water mains that will need to be replaced over the years and continue to need, but we can't do everything at one time, so.
So these were the highest needed areas, is that right?
This
Or-
is
I
not
mean,
the first ones we've had. We had some in January come to us, I believe, right? So was that one or two, I forget, areas? So we've had those, so I guess those might have been priority or first on the ballot. So this is second pieces of this. We talked about it in that commission meeting that more would be coming to us. Is there more to come to us after this potentially too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a program put on by the Ohio EPA in conjunction with our water distribution manager, which is Superintendent of Public Works, works with them to get this started. I think this is actually now a statewide program that they've implemented so that communities can eliminate lead line
So this
service.
is kind of state driven and they're kind of pushing their program out, which is where the timing comes from,
Yes.
versus doing 3 years from now, 3 years ago, whatever. Like, why now? I guess my question. That makes sense. Just ballpark, are we talking about hundreds of houses, 50 houses? How many houses are we talking about?
We have over 700 service connections, so
On each one?
this place, the city started being built how many years ago, and they all had lead service lines connected to, wood pipes that were water mains and all that, so there's
Yeah,
a
I just
considerable
replaced some
amount.
myself, so-
As we go through this, I mean, it's a continuous improvement project.
Okay, so we're gonna see several of these, more than 5, I guess, going forward.
Hopefully, we will be doing this every time we replace a water main, and what we are trying to do is replace water mains and do street rehabilitation at the same time, and we'll do lead line replacement for that up.
Okay.
The less we have tapped into the system, the better off we are.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to drill you all these questions, but I'm just curious.
Any other questions or points of discussion? Well, not seeing any, I will look for a motion to vote on approval of debt incurred for the Rolston Avenue and Montgomery Road lead service line replacement project.
So moved.
Mr. Shepherd, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Gomez, all right, I will take the roll. Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Council President Gears,
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz,
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd,
Yes.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Ms. Garvey,
Yes.
and yes from myself as well. Okay. Moving on, the next item on the agenda is discussion and vote on the 2025 financial recovery plan. So I'd like to start by turning it over to Mayor Schneider to talk about some of the updates that have been made since the last time that we came together and discussed the plan.
Okay, so the other, as we did in the previous meeting, the two pages, pages 16 and 17, which is other funds, are included in the plan, and they were corrected. They were there, they just weren't printed out, and they're attached to the plan. Couple of other changes that occurred. We have tentative agreement with the police department for their union agreement, their contract, and those changes have been put in place when it comes to the personnel keys and personnel services. So that means that all four, and that's one of the reasons why this has taken longer than in previous years, is that means that all four union contracts have been implemented in here and are, I think, accounted for. This was, a lengthy exercise of adding changes to some pay scales and different things, so it takes a while to make those changes and get them in there. And there were some formulas that council members had pointed out. There were some formulas that the state auditor's office pointed out that needed to be corrected, and those have been corrected. There was also a BWC true-up that the state auditor's office had provided us information on. We worked on the spreadsheet, but then it didn't get implemented into the FRP properly. It is in the system properly now. So what you have before you is a revised, edited first look, second look. It got ultimately it had 7 readings in front of City Council and was passed last night by City Council. So I'm asking for the commission to pass the financial recovery plan today.
Council President Gears, if you want to speak to the council's process at all,
As far as,
if there were any concerns or just the general process through council.
I mean, we had unanimous support for it last night. And luckily, we had everybody there and we had unanimous support. So there was no need to call any special meetings or delay this meeting for the point of passing this.
Were there any concerns at all, or any questions, or anything you can share with this group?
Aside from, I think, the request for an arborist to be added, that was one of the items that came up. Aside from that, Mayor, I know they had, trying to recall what questions were directed at you.
Yeah, they had went through it multiple times, so they didn't have many questions. They'd seen multiple renditions of it. They didn't really have many questions.
Questions or concerns that were expressed at previous meetings were not expressed last night.
Where are the significant, I know we were missing a few funds. Can we talk about those specifically and point out the impact of those?
Page 16 and page 17.
And that's the street construction and repair fund and the state highway fund.
So I see street maintenance and repair fund on 16.
Yes, that's correct.
Wasn't there another one you mentioned?
Yes, the state highway fund on page 17, that's the following page.
17, okay.
And these were 2 pages where some of the fund totals were not correct at the end, and the auditor of state's office provided me with some information, and we corrected those fund totals.
They were omitted, right?
The pages were omitted, correct,
Okay.
but then they
I
were.
mean, the funds were admitted themselves, omitted. Like they weren't there in the last batch, right?
This is correct, yeah. That was one of the largest.
Versus
outstanding.
changing the numbers, yeah.
So I can't speak to how much the numbers have changed.
We didn't
since-
know what they were before, so.
Right.
I can tell you that in the previous rendition of it, the fund, the unencumbered fund balance in 2029, which is the far right on the state highway funds was showing a positive balance of 103. And after changing the formulas and correcting it, in 2029, that fund balance goes negative to 150,000. I thought you would point that out, but I'll point that out.
Thank you.
The
I
idea,
was.
but the important part is looking at where we are in 2025, it's still 1,400,000. In 2026, it is 1 million over. In 2027, it's 647. So it is going down, and it is something we need to monitor. It's something that we need to be cognizant of, and we are. And I think that even the auditor's office and Mary Yeager, who's in attendance, has been made aware, and we'll be working on some different ways to really monitor where we are and what our path is through the years and how we improve upon that.
I think I want to hear what Anna Mary has to add comments before I have
Yeah.
other questions.
Okay, so before changes from last night, one of the last changes was moving, fixing some ending, beginning balances in the last years of the street and state highway. This was not negative at that time until this change. That was something I was going to point out. That's not normally something we want to see, even in the fifth year on a fiscal recovery plan. And looking at some things, I did have some issues looking at stuff from yesterday that looks like you did update your capital plan because it wasn't matching the FRP part, but it looks like you've made most of those changes too. Is that correct?
Yes, we made some changes there.
Because a couple of departments were way off. Like you have the funds here, but the capital plan was not matching. And so I think that he's made some of those changes and the city has approved as such. Not everything has been approved or changed from what we had. Is it immaterial? Material? Hard to say. Some of it is payroll related, stuff that I had mentioned the time before. I mentioned in my last review for him in the city. The only thing I'll say to that is if this is approved, I foresee changes needed to the budget because you can only have a budget for appropriations that matches the FRP for 2025, less the outstanding encumbrances coming into the year, which are built into here. So you have to back them out. So the appropriations can only be matching this at the department level and the level you see here, because that's what's required for them to pass for the legal level of control. With that being said, that means you'll have to be coming back to my office for approvals. And then what I had stated is that that means we'll be moving monies from other departments. So knowing that the appropriations will not be set at what I feel they need to be, but may not be material or immaterial overall, I'm just cautioning the city. And I do need those a week before they have to be turned in, not just to a week before council, because you guys need to have them in so the council can see them. So my timeline is a week ahead. And knowing that these are already going to have to be changed, may need to be more than a week. So we've already changed our book of business. Because this had to be moved back and resubmitted again to the commission, so I'm cautioning the city going forward on that.
Is there a copy of the old plan from the last meeting available? Or the final page even?
I have it on my computer here.
I think I have one printed.
Santa Mary, you talk about updates that you foresee needing to be made. Can you speak to the norm of that? Is that typical of an FRP that is passed by the commission, of us having to come back and okay full updates to the plan?
So the updates I was speaking to is just to the budget. So they
Okay.
would have to stay within the lines of the overall expenditures for 2025. They cannot escape that without updating the FRP. If we have to update the FRP, that is a full review again. We'll look at where you stand at that period of time with actual information and new estimates going forward with new questions. So that's not we fix one line and move on. It's a full review. And then coming back and see if more stuff needs to change. It's an ever-growing thing. So it's a living, breathing document like we've talked about, the mayor's talked about. Depending on what time period we're looking at for a full update. We said we have a tentative police. We'd have a full police probably by that time. And have to look at the staffing and where things are and if anything has changed on priority lists. So it, again, is not a one-line fix. It is a full review, so it would go through the whole process again.
Okay. And I think last time that we came together, you spoke to a likelihood of that having to happen with the plan that was in front of us at that time, and you felt that it was fairly likely that there would need to be a full update of the FRP, whether it be one or several throughout the year. Have some of those concerns been addressed since then with edits that have been made to the FRP, or do most of them still stand?
I don't know what you've added on to your tentative. I've seen the original stuff that was tentative with the police, so I don't know if anything's changed in that regard. I do know the salaries that I had questioned had been fixed. I can state that for them. Until I have that union contract in front of me, that would be the one piece I'd be curious to see if it would change anything. The rest of it, as they go along, you have to be monitoring your budgets, which is the auditor's office and the departments and administration having to do that, plus finance committee and council as well, looking to see where they stand, not only just expenditure-wise, which we normally do here, and we will have in our next commission, is where do you stand with revenues against the FRP and the expenditures against the FRP. And does that make sense on the timelines that we have? And we'll speak to why percentages maybe seem out of whack, because maybe something's paid 100%, but maybe all of it's supposed to be already. That's our normal monitoring that we do in here. That should be the normal monitoring that is occurring at the city level and at council level. So they would have to watch that. With that being said, we have made changes to appropriations before, so things that were in the plan have come out and moved, or we didn't have staffing that was put in place at the time that they thought it would have to happen. So you have some wiggle room in there. So we have had changes to appropriations before, and that's not uncommon. But with the plan, we try not to come in and know that there's going to be more changes unless there's something big like a union contract still going through stuff. So that would be my only cautionary thing right now would be that. Other than there is a lot of capital on the table. We've started some big projects. We've already moved appropriations for those to get those started through this year because they weren't started last year for whatever reason, not good, bad, or indifferent. So that would be the other cautionary thing I would put out there.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Or?
I mean, I listened to the last meeting. I think pretty much it was, everybody was good with the general funds, significant decreases in fund balance over the years.
We noted, Tom and I noted that we were not entirely comfortable with that downward trend. Kind of a general statement.
I think bouncing off the comments on the general funds, I was shared a version before, an edited version before the one that went before council, and I had noticed there was an issue with the fund balance in the general fund, which has since been corrected. Mayor, I know that issue was the fund went, I think, around $800,000 or so in 2028, and then would have gone negative in 2029 had the formula been carried over. I'm curious to know what updates and edits were made to address that issue of, in that version, the general fund would have gone negative in 2029.
Well, we have to balance off the capital expenditures and capital expenses. So there were some TBD, to be determined projects and capital that were removed.
Okay. Thank you.
What type of errors did we find in this document?
So I
You
think
talk about formula errors.
Anna Mary can probably speak to that more fully than I can. But what I had mentioned just now was there was the downward trend in general fund balance that we had discussed last time was continuing to the point where, you know, it was a little bit lower than when we had come before last time around to approve the plan. And so there was a formula that added up the end balance that had not been carried over to 2029. So that caused it to appear like it wasn't going to go negative in 2029, and when in reality it was. So it was just, I think, an Excel error, which was,
I guess getting back to the control issue, what assurances do we have that there aren't other errors? I mean, we approved
Yeah.
previous plans. Were there errors in previous plans?
yeah,
I get real worried when I hear Excel spreadsheets because those
Sure.
are ripe for human error.
sure.
And I guess has Anna Mary blessed this? If all the formulas been double checked, triple checked?
Well, I will defer to Anna Mary on that. I obviously can't speak to previous plans myself either, not having been around for them. This is my first iteration of the plan that I've been on the commission for. But Anna Mary, I guess, could you speak to your confidence in?
Sure. For the ending fund balances and stuff, those have been corrected. We did double check those. We noted some errors, and it's a huge spreadsheet, let me tell you that. And there's quite a bit of tabs and formulations that go into this, and there's linking and all kinds of fun stuff. This is prepared by the city. In there, we did note some footing errors that I would consider immaterial. We don't like cents. It sounds really funny, but we don't like cents in there. So because we're trying to round to the nearest dollar, so that's not going to foot right. So I'm not going to take exception to that because it's just.
So you're talking off a dollar or two?
Yeah, for some of those.
Right.
There were some issues along the way that there were some formulas not pulling forward or pulling down or calculating across or going from payroll tab to the master expense tab, and then the master expense tab then goes to the general fund and so forth. Can I sit here and say 100% that all of them are fixed? No, the majority have been fixed. We got a new addition on Monday night, I think, from the city. We tried to get through most of it yesterday. I'll sit here and tell you I couldn't get through all of it. I had other things that were also priority, and it's a short turnaround. We tried to make sure that the big things were fixed, and these were some of those. I gave non-negotiables in my email that had to be fixed. Those seem to have been fixed from what I can tell in our review. So I can't sit here and tell you 100% all of them are fixed.
Brad, I can
most.
comment on that if you don't mind.
Please.
We don't have robots working at the city of Norwood, and we have a lot of different people that have a part of this spreadsheet.
Right.
So you've got the HR department working with your benefit stuff, and you've got your payroll people working, and guess what? All of it is manual. You're absolutely right. All of it is manual input. And there's many times, we talked about it this time about, we were talking about our systems and what we can use. So we have a software system that our accounting department uses, but we use about probably 50% of it. And there are other portions of it. We'd love to get it where we can pull it and dump it into it, and it's not manual fingering of keying everything in. And when we talk about, the percentages and then cents, and you look at some of these formulas and you look at what number it's pulling from, and it's $39,358 and 85.003526 and you're like, oh, how'd that form get formatted that way where it's, so then you change it and then that changed your whole formula, and you're going back. Now you're going through 3 different tabs because it's going from this sheet to that sheet to this, and then you find out, oh, okay, well, every one of them are that way. If you change it here, you've changed every one of them. So we would love for it to be an automated, pull it out off of the BIP system, and it dumps that portion into the FRP. And you can look at it and say, all the numbers are correct for this period of time. It's not perfect. I'd love to say it is.
Yeah, well,
but
and I
it's
guess everything, I appreciate you saying that, but I guess that reiterated my concern is you have many people involved in there with various skill sets, entering information, it's a shared document. That makes it more ripe for mistakes, errors, changes.
Oh, wait, I'd have to agree with you 100%. The more people and the more hands you have in there, it's just like a good stew.
Right, and
It's
then when
like
I hear,
too many-
again, I get back to controls, you know, and it's, a control's a control, and they're important for a reason. You hear about errors in the spreadsheet, and we think we got most of them, but we're not sure. That makes me feel uncomfortable. Just, you know, as a CPA, it's like, well, what, I have a level of uncertainty that I don't know if I can get comfortable with, because I don't necessarily know if the numbers are right or not. And I don't mean to be a PIA, but, I don't like hearing those types of things. You know, a lot of hands in the cookie jar. It's like, okay, well then where's the mistake come from? Who's making it? How did it get made? I mean, is the spreadsheet password protected? Is there limited use? Is there an administrator? Or is it just go in there and put your stuff in and get out? I mean, those are types of controls to prevent errors and manipulation, whether intentional or I don't think it's intentional. It's just mistakes. I mean, they happen. I make them all the time.
Hey, Brad, is your question a systems question? Should we consider over the coming years updating our system? Or is your question about the approval of this plan?
Yes.
So if,
It's short-term and long-term. I mean, I'm not saying we have a better option than this spreadsheet. I'm not being unrealistic.
yeah,
I mean, I input stuff into spreadsheets, but I understand the inherent risk that exists with any spreadsheet. You know, you look at depreciation spreadsheet, I think we have our fixed assets on that, and there's errors in that we know of that are to be fixed as part of the control. So any giant spreadsheet gives me some fear that it's not controlled or protected.
right.
And then when you hear something about a 5-year budget, negative fund balances, we made some changes, they weren't significant. I'm not entirely comfortable with the net of the changes or the transactions that happened. I had a question too, just kind of a sidebar on page 15. Are these the totals? Because then we have page 17, 16, and 17 with additional totals, which I guess are just for that category. So really, page 15 is really the last page.
Page 15 is the last page of the general fund. 16 and 17 are two separate funds, one being the street construction and repair and the other being the state highway. So
Okay. So the only negative fund is the street maintenance and repair in 2029.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but that's my general concern is for now, what do we not know about? What's the unknown?
Sure.
And how does that impact these numbers?
Yeah.
I assume, which could be a mistake, that the people that are involved in double checking this have done a good job and that there are not material errors. But again, any seed of uncertainty or doubt is just, doesn't make me feel comfortable. And I don't know, I guess that's just kind of my general statement. So I don't know if I have an answer, but those are my thoughts.
So it feels to me like we can go forward and vote on, you know, assuming all the questions are, once all the questions get addressed, we can vote on this as the best information we have, or we can not vote on it and work to affirm the spreadsheet. And I personally would suggest we vote with this as the best information we have. But Brad's, you know, angst, you know, may raise the other option. But again, to be clear, I'd want to vote
okay, yeah,
understanding this is the best information.
yeah, I appreciate that input, and I think, as Anna Mary said, you know, worst comes to worst, there could be a full update of the plan. Any other comments or questions for the time being?
How many votes we need to approve it?
Majority,
Which is how many?
4. I think the last thing then, I guess, if no one else has any other questions or comments before we move on here, go ahead, Mr. Shepherd.
No, I'm just leaning in.
Okay, I thought you were raising your hand. The last thing that I would like then, I guess, is I would turn back again to Anna Mary and ask, just as a whole, your thoughts on the plan, and would you generally recommend approving it?
Good question. Generally, my office does not like to see negatives, so there's a negative, and that causes me issues, even though it is in only one fund. It is up to you on what you determine on how you feel on that. Again, I will just reiterate, we didn't get to vest it fully from the last changes. I saw changes this morning from what I asked for, and there was some to the capital, which I was happy to see. So at this time, I think my office will abstain on recommending either way.
May I speak to the negative for 2029?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm just looking back at the 2 years ago plan. Our forecast for 2024 on the state highway fund was for an unencumbered fund balance of $19,000 for 2024. The actual came in 10 times higher than that
And you said this was 4 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago, okay.
Yeah, so, and if you do the same thing on the general fund, 2024 was supposed to be, was forecasted to be 5.5 million. It turned out to be actual,
16 and a half.
again, 10 times that. Wait, no, 3 times that. So I think it's just the way this is all set up, it is the incentive on the planning folks is to overstate expenditures because it's easy to underspend. It's, an act of government, not Norwood government, but the overlord to overspend. So there's a strong incentive in this plan to overstate what it is we're going to spend. And just, resources being what they are, we will not spend that much. So I am quite fine with a $150,000 negative forecasted fund for 2029 because of that dynamic. And I'm updating my concern about the 2029 forecast. Unencumbered fund balance for the general fund of 1.8 million being too slim. I'm good with both of those. It's leaping out at me that this is a very conservative plan in the sense that it overstates our expenditures.
Nathan, can I have Chris from my office speak to the fact that if you were asking for a release from emergency, if it could occur with a negative,
Yeah, go ahead.
since he's sitting here?
Yeah, the way the office looks at it, and if you guys want to vote on it being negative this year, again, like Anna Mary said, we're not going to go either way. But as far as release from fiscal emergency, like Anna Mary just stated, when you are looking at the recovery plan and you're looking at the report on accounting method, both have to be taken into account. We've discussed that in previous meetings. To be released from the finance side, from the FRP side, you have to show 5-year positive balances in whatever funds placed you in fiscal emergency in the first place. So in regards to this $150,000 negative for 29, before you all can request release from fiscal emergency, every one of those balances in all 3 of these funds have to show positive balances for all 5 years in the future.
Good.
Or else,
Helpful.
or else our office,
Yep.
again, based on what we know and based on the way things have went, based on ORC code sections, that's the requirement.
Okay. that is helpful added context. I appreciate that.
So that means just, we couldn't get out of fiscal emergency for another year.
Or without another
without
full
a new
updated plan.
Yes. Amongst other things that we've talked about, that would be one of the things that would have to be corrected.
It's laughable.
Yeah, I would agree with the mayor. You know, if we change $1.25 million in capital street projects to $1.2 million for the next 5 years, we're positive. I mean,
You
it's
are
a,
correct.
it's
Or even
a,
in 29.
We would still do an analysis. So here's the thing. They're behind on capital, which is why this was required to be in here.
the capital fund,
No,
capital period.
capital, period, projects. I mean, when we were first in
capital
here,
projects.
streets was a big concern.
Yeah.
Your street funds only get gas tax and MVO monies. There is no street levies. It is then on the back of the general fund to help with some of that. You have one other street fund, which is permissive MVO, which is small. It is also already taken up with a lot of debt right now, and I've stated that. There's no more use out of that one. Anything else that comes to us that says it's on the back of permissive MVO will have to be forecasted to prove it can handle it. Because the last one showed it couldn't, that I received. With that being said, we're going to look at that stuff to make sure that you're taking into account the needs and prioritizing them going forward. That is why you see the reduction of expenses. Now, you said conservatively. There's needs here that need to be addressed. So we, as my office, haven't said much about the general fund decreasing to the degree that there is, other than we said, please watch, because as you add expenses, you can't take them away. Once you get personnel stuff, you can't take them away. It's really hard to,
But
right?
you
But
can
then
cut-
you have all that, I understand what
You
you're
can
saying.
cut $50,000
It's
from the capital
$50,000.
expenditure budget.
Yes.
Like, I could do it right now.
Which
I
is
could just
what
change these fives
you
to
could.
zeros and we're good.
So what is the need that you're fulfilling for that is what we've
Well,
been
it's
questioning.
to meet the obligation to get out from under
Yeah, but
the
that
thumb.
shouldn't be what you're trying to do. You're trying to show what the needs are of the city to go
Okay, but-
forward.
but this
I'm
is-
just
I mean-
putting it out there of what we do in our office and what we're questioning. So we've allowed the capital to be so high because there's so many needs. Because at a time, there's a
Okay.
long time they couldn't do a lot of
I
stuff.
appreciate that.
So,
So
and
let-
you guys have brought up that the negative, that it is decreasing and to watch that with the decisions that are being made by the city.
Okay, and I would contend that on a 5-year projection, $1.2 million is the same as $1.25 million. It's like no difference. And we never spend as much as we put in here in the first place. So I would counsel the mayor to have somebody change this standard $1.25 million projection on this capital projects for street maintenance to 1.2, turning this fund balance at the end of the decade positive, and thereby at least complying with that piece of the requirement.
So I would contend that we're not getting out of fiscal emergency this year anyways.
Good.
There's no way possible that the auditor of state's office is going to do all their testing and all their stuff, and correct me if I'm wrong, either of you, and say, okay, let's get the city of Norwood out of that. That's not been the path they're going down. That's not the path they want to go down. We have a lot of, if you ask them, we've got a ton, just a ton of work to do on our accounting policies and procedures and to get everything in order. So council has approved this. We recognize what's there. I would recommend we approve this financial recovery plan and that we move forward.
Is it inappropriate to move that we vote?
I think I'd like to wait and see if there's any other discussion points before
Okay.
we move to a vote. I think that I would say that's certainly the direction that we are heading in.
I would imagine.
Was
so.
everybody in council and the mayor and everybody involved in this aware that we were negative in 2029 in that fund? I don't mean to be a
It
smart
went,
ass.
it went in front of them. Did they understand the ramifications as they were
Did
stated?
they
in this
understand that it
meeting?
was
No.
negative and that like was not acceptable with the state and that's kind of a big deal?
No, that was not brought up. It was not on my mind. It would be on my mind if I felt like we were really close to getting out
Yeah.
But even this commission has said, no, 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 we're not letting the city of Norwood out of it. So this is here, I recognize, but no, it wasn't
So
something.
you were aware of it?
It wasn't, it's something, it was the last change that I made from that formula that put us into that negative amount.
And then
Did it
everybody
really-
knew, we pointed out that we are negative in that last year. Was that pointed out in the meeting?
No, it was not,
May I ask why it wasn't?
because it was not, for me, you guys are making it out of, oh my God, we're not gonna be able to get out of fiscal emergency. I don't see us, I'd said earlier this year and last year, Norwood needs to just normalize this because I don't see an end. There's not a light at the end of the tunnel from the administrative perspective on when the Auditor of State's office will let us out. As much work as we've done, there's still testing. And the testing, the answers on testing are always like, well, that's 6, you got to wait a year to see if you actually implement that plan and do it. So I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. So would it matter to me? Does it matter to me? Not at all, Brad. Not at all. I don't think there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't think this is snuffing anything out. I just think we're going to continue in this probably until I'm out of office. And that's 2 more years.
Have we answered or fixed every management control issue that was noted?
No.
Well, then how can we expect them to let us out of fiscal emergency?
He's not arguing for it, and I
I mean,
probably,
it's on, I know you're not arguing for it, but I mean, it's on us because we didn't fix everything. So how can they check everything? We didn't fix everything. So we can't say, well, they're gonna take forever. They got all this red tape and all that.
Because we
busy
feel-
schedules. Well, we didn't do what we were supposed to do.
We
So how
feel
the hell
like
can we
the
expect that?
goalpost changes. The goalpost change is moving. So even when we present procedures and say, this is what other communities are doing, this is how they do it, all we did was replicate that, and we present that to them, then it comes back, and the Auditor of State's office says, well, you need to change this, this, and this. And we're like, wait a minute, this has been in practice for 5 years at 3 other communities, but now ours is supposed to be the new and improved one, although we didn't know how it's supposed to be new and improved. Now we want to improve it, so now we got to make those changes and then re-present it. It's a constant, ever-changing goal to get to, and that's why I said, from the city's perspective, normalize it. We're going to be in fiscal emergency in 2029 and beyond. Okay, because every year as we make changes, there's improvements that are being made, and. We should adopt those, well, while the Auditor of State's office is in here telling us how to do it right. Well, it changed 6 months later, and now you should be doing it this way. Okay, well, we'll resubmit, and then, well, that changes the goal, it's now 6 months longer because, so it just, I'm sorry, I know I'm just making this meeting take even longer than I have for this meeting, but that's how I feel. And this negative number doesn't matter a lick to me, not one lick. Or one smackerel, as people would say.
I mean, I sat here and listened for a few years before where we weren't able to conduct business. We weren't able to get business development. It was a stain on Norwood that we were in fiscal emergency. And now I hear again, like the last meeting or you said a couple of meetings ago, that it doesn't matter anymore. Where it was a burden, a chain around the ankles of Norwood to conduct business. Is that not the case anymore? Or was that just an opinion at the time? Because that just goes right in the face of what you were saying a year or two ago, and I guess I don't understand it.
my point of view is that when we started, you and I started, Brad, Norwood was in fiscal emergency.
Right.
It was pretty much of a mess. Today, I think it's running pretty darn well. And so are we in the state's definition of technical fiscal emergency? Apparently so. Are we in the state of fiscal emergency? I don't see it. And, I don't, 5-year forecast, I could write anything down for a 5-year forecast and have, equal odds of being right or wrong. So I'm not concerned about a $150,000 deficit 5 years from now either. I think the city's doing great.
Mr. Clem, is this an all or nothing? Like we can't take, except for that fund perhaps?
Correct. This is an
Okay.
all or nothing.
All right.
So I think were we to not approve the plan, I think it would go back and we would do this process one more time, hopefully. And the mayor would make edits to the plan, and then it would be resubmitted for council, and then it would have to come back to us again for our approval or disapproval.
I guess my thought or concern really is that anyone wouldn't have fixed that negative fund balance before presenting the plan. That kind of concerns me that it would have been okay to whoever reviewed this, that we are showing that we're going to be negative, because we know we can't be. So that's, I don't know, just when you put a big plan that you know is going to get approved for a period of time, and then there is a fund that's negative. That can't really be the plan. So.
And it is not a negative to the state for our condition that this is negative at this point in time.
When we submit it up, when we talk to my boss about it, we will tell him, if the commission says we're going to pass this plan currently, but we're also going to put some stipulations in place that, by the next rendition, which we know is going to be coming, it's just a matter of when, like Anna Mary stated, if the condition can be fixed at that point in time, and we can show a positive in 2029, I think that would be looked upon as, okay, yes, we have a condition now, but the condition's going to be fixed. So the passage would be, yes, it's looked at negative at the moment, but there's still a condition that it is going to be fixed a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later. Our thing is, we just cannot release the city until we show 5-year positives. That's the big crux of all.
So would it be fair to say that this, by having this negative fund balance in 2029, which we, I think collectively deem this is not significant to us at this point in time, that it would be more of a negative than a positive in the eyes of the state?
Just from a potential release standpoint, yes, it would be more of a negative. Again, things happen, and if this was a last minute thing that occurred with a formula change, okay, we know that would be the case. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but that would be the case. So, like I said, if we change it somewhere down the line, if it's in August or September or whatever the case may be, and this fund now becomes positive and we show the balance, okay, we have stated that to our supervisors, we know this is the case. They are planning to do a revision later on in the year, and part of that revision will be this fund will be corrected, and there will be no negative.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
All right. Anyone else? All right, not seeing anything, I will look for a motion to vote on approval of the 2025 financial recovery plan that has been approved by council.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mayor. I will take the roll. Mayor Schneider,
Yes.
Council President Gears,
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz.
Can I defer to go last?
That's a good question.
I've done it before.
All right. No, I will let you. All right. Mr. Shepherd,
Yes.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Ms. Garvey.
Yes.
I am a no, and Mr. Schwartz.
That's 3 and 1.
I
No,
think
we have four.
it's passed.
We have 4?
We
Yeah.
have 4.
Okay, you got him one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. No.
All right. Well, by a vote of 4-2, or 5-2, the 2025 financial recovery plan is approved by the Financial Planning and Supervision Commission. I will now turn over to the next item on the agenda, which is report of the financial supervisor. Anna Mary, if you have any other points of discussion that you would like to bring up at this meeting?
There's a lot of work to be done in the reporting and accounting methods. There's a process there for a reason. We have a new deputy auditor who's working on revisions of that stuff and has talked to me as well as her boss. She's also been an internal auditor, so there is actually a different perspective also within that office. When we get back to normal meetings, we will have updates on those, but the FRP has taken up most of the time, plus the debts that have come to our office. That's my update.
Okay. Next up on the agenda was report of the mayor. He has departed, so we will move on. Report of the council, city council president. Mr. Gears, if you have anything to add.
I have nothing new to add.
Okay. And that being the last thing on the agenda, I will look for a motion to adjourn. All right, thank you. Mayor Schneider is absent. Council President Gears,
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz,
Yes.
Mr. Shepard,
Yes.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Ms. Garvey, and yes. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.